All right, let's talk about a movie called The Lost Patient. Is it delusions of grandeur or not? You're about to find out. So we see these kids playing in the street. One kicked a soccer ball over the net, whatever. It's somebody's backyard. So the kid goes over to get the ball. He knocks on the door. Nobody answers. He looks through the window and he's seeing four dead bodies. He's like, oh shit. Turns out one of them was able to get to the hospital. He wasn't dead. This dude by the name of Thomas. So Thomas finally wakes up. We're introduced to this lady by the name of Anna. She's like a therapist. So basically, all the people that was in his house was his parents and his cousin Dylan. Oh, they were dumb deal dead as shit. But now he's thinking to himself, like, where's Laura? Now, Laura, it happens to be his sister. Basically, Anna tells him that Laura's missing. Now, she's trying to get the details of what happened that fateful day, and then all of a sudden, like, he's been traumatized by this dude with a hoodie. We don't see his face, and we don't know who he is. Apparently, since the incident, this dude's been in a coma for 3 years. So at this point, he's got to go through physical therapy because he hasn't been able to use his body, be able to get his legs walking around, doing what he needs to do. Now, we notice that Anna has some type of cane, so you think to yourself, like, something happened to her leg, but they never really explain what. So we get these flashbacks of him chilling with Laura and the family, just eating at the table and whatnot. And they try to get all touchy around this situation. Apparently, a mom has been cheating on her dad with some other dude. Laura's outside with Thomas at this one point, sees the hoodie dude. She's like, hey, get away from him. Mom don't want you no more. Then he keeps finding himself in situations where he's looking around back at the house and trying to find Laura. Because at this point, he can't really recall everything 100%, and that's what Anna's trying to do. She's trying to get it out of him. Now, while he's in his therapy class, he's got another dude in there by the name of Bastian. Now, Bastian really just doesn't want to do anything. Then while they're doing physical therapy, the nurses go in and check out the news. Turns out, the news talked about airplanes hitting Twin Towers. So I'm like, oh, we're in 9/11 territory. So now, yeah, this takes place in 2001. So now you're thinking to yourself, was this based on a true story? So anyway, we get this one scene where they're going back in time where Thomas and Laura are basically, Laura's basically looking at this one chick. She goes out to hang out with her. Now, Thomas is thinking to himself, he went back to class, but Anna's like, what really happened? And Thomas ended up going on the force, too. And he found Laura actually kissing this girl. I guess it's a girlfriend or something like that, right? But then she was getting kissed too hard, and then she ended up running off. Now, there's this one scene, she's like banging her head against a tree and her arm, whatever like that. She's got these cuts on her head. And this comes from the scene when she came home that night yelling at the hoodie dude, and her father looked at her and was like, hey, where'd you get this blood from you? And he's like, man, just go clean up before your mother sees you. So we get this one scene back at the hospital where Thomas is talking to Bastian. Bastian really doesn't say much, but everything he does makes sense. Now, apparently, his whole family was killed in a car accident. They don't really expound how or why, but this touches Thomas's soul. And afterwards, the scene where Thomas asks Anna what happened to her leg, and then he automatically assumes car accident, and she don't really say nothing. She's just like, what made you come straight to car accident? But like I said, she never expounded on that. So I know you're thinking to yourself, at this point, where does Dylan come into play? Well, we get this scene where Thomas, Laura, his mom, and are all at Dylan's house and their mom. Now, Dylan's basically about to come live with them. Now, the reason why is because his mom has 3 weeks left before she's got cancer. And she's pretty much going to die in less than a month. So they're basically taking Dylan in and having him come live with them. Now, on the ride home, they're just chilling, listening to music, and then all of a sudden, mom almost hits this random girl in the road. Laura's holding her, telling her not to cry, calm down, or whatever like that. So now I'm thinking to myself, something really traumatic must have happened in a car scene or something, you know what I'm saying? So we got this scene where Dylan's getting settled in or whatever like that, but then he goes upstairs in his room, and Laura's like, hey, you can't be in here. They end up smoking in there or whatever like that, but then we find out the reason later on. Everybody goes down to the table to get something to eat. They start airing out a little bit of dirty laundry. And then mom goes to pick up the phone. Turns out it's Dylan's mom on the phone. And afterwards, she basically embraces Dylan. She's like, yeah, your mom's going to fight this. Don't even worry about it. She's got this. And Thomas and Laura just stand there staring at him. It's just like, yo, like. So now for some reason, Laura, Thomas, and Dylan are all sleeping downstairs in the basement. Laura tells Dylan the reason why they can't go in that room is because dad keeps a gun in a box. So I'm thinking to myself, why is that a problem? He's not crazy or anything like that, right? But Laura tells Dylan, like, dad ain't gonna do nothing, you know what I'm saying? I got the bullets anyway. And throughout all this entire time, there's this dog, this next door neighbor dog that keeps barking all the time. It, like, barks nonstop. She tells Dylan it's got rabies. And Dylan's like, well, why don't you just put it down? Which is bullshit. Why would you keep a dog if it has rabies? That don't make sense. So the whole time, like, Anna's trying to do her best to get, any type of information out of Thomas about the situation. And Thomas keeps asking where Laura is. Then she tells her, like, Laura's sick. He tells her she's had like psychological problems as a kid or something like that. But Thomas ain't falling for the bullshit no more. He's like, yo, just tell me the truth. What's really good? Now, throughout all this time, Thomas is in the process of actually being able to walk again, but he's still real weak in his legs. Then he tells her something like, she's stuck in the wall. I'm like, the fuck? Then we get this random scene of Thomas's parents decorating the room and Thomas when he was little in his crib, whatever like that. And I'm thinking to myself, where the hell's Laura? So it gets to a point Thomas at night is able to stand a little bit, but he's got to lean across the railings or whatever like that. Now his goal is to get to Bastian, get him out of the room so he can get up out of there or whatever. See, one of his physical therapy sessions, he was like trying to figure out where's Bastian at, and they said that he transferred to a different location or whatever, but he thinks it's bullshit. And at night, one point at night, he actually thought one of the nurses was trying to kill him or whatever like that. But it turns out there's no guy nurses at night. But it turns out the guy nurse is there, and he thinks the guy nurse is the dude with the hoodie because he thinks that's Laura's ex-boyfriend. But it turns out that's not the case. So when Thomas goes in the room and try to get Bastian out the bed, who can't even move, that same nurse comes in, pulls him off, whatever, and starts kicking him. Because at that point, he thought Thomas was trying to choke Sebastian to death. Now, why does he think this? Now, when they get the back of the bed, here comes the real story. We get the scene where Hannah's going over the grass, right? Now, this scene plays a couple times in the movie, but this is where it comes from. It's showing Thomas when he was little at this gravesite with his mom, but the gravesite is actually Laura's. Yeah. She was born 1978 to 1982. She was only 4 years old. So everything that happened with the blood on the face or whatever coming in the house, that was actually Thomas. Thomas was the one that was actually kissing the girl of the tree. Thomas was the one that was actually trying to pull Dylan out the room saying you can't be here. Yeah, Thomas was the one that was actually doing all that. It turns out his parents and Dylan were scared of him and they all went upstairs into that room. Dad talking about Thomas needs to get some psychiatric help. You see where I'm getting to here? So it turns out he's been distraught over losing his sister even back like when she was only 4 years old. Now, how did she die? It was Thomas's mom that accidentally ran her over in a car. She had jumped out the middle of the street and accidentally hit her. I'm like, oh shit. And that was also Thomas that was hugging his mom when she almost hit that random kid instead of Laura. But that ain't even the crazy part. So one night, the dad's just sleeping on the couch. Next thing you know, Thomas comes up to him, pulls out the pistol, and the dad's like, just do it. And he bangs off on him, done deals him. Mom comes down the steps, Thomas shoots her, done deals her. He goes upstairs to confront Dylan. Dylan's like, I'm so sorry about everything. Thomas ends up shooting Dylan in his stomach. He's falling down the steps. And then he gets on top and starts choking Dylan out. Done deal, dead as shit. And as he's walking around in the rain, we see he's actually the one that was wearing the hoodie the whole time. The hoodie man was him. So he goes back at the house. He sits on the couch conflicted about everything that he's doing. And he ends up stabbing himself in the stomach. So that's how he got the stab wound. And then he sees this image on TV of this music video. And it's this lady that's actually supposed to be Laura grown up. So that's why he got the image of her being a sister. But obviously she never got to be a teen because she died when she was 4 years old. All right, so I got to add this little bit in. There were times at night when Thomas was in the hospital, he would go towards the window and he would see Anna talking to the nurse. So he's thinking to himself like, this feels like a setup. That's why he was getting pissed off. Come to find out the nurse really knew about the situation and so did Anna. But the nurse was like, yeah, stop giving him special treatment and tell him what really happened to his sister. Like, yeah, your sister's dead. I think Anna was trying to get the whole story from him, but the thing was, it sounded like they already knew the story. So the nurse ends up leaving, Anna ends up sitting by his bed, and then the last image we see is when he go back to the house, where we see Thomas has stabbed himself and potentially almost dying, but looking at the TV and the image that we see of Laura, who we supposed to think that's Laura. All I can say is, man, this shit was fucking bonkers. Now, my question is, how did Anna really mess up her leg? Because they kept relaying a lot of things back to car accidents and stuff. I don't know, maybe it just triggered Thomas or something, I don't know. All I gotta say is, man, this story is nuts if it was true. The Lost Patient on Netflix, check it out!